Welcome, 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 beautiful people, to another episode of People Always Ask. And today we are asking a common question, especially coming out of this pandemic, which is, how do you cope with imposter syndrome? How are you supposed to overcome that? Because some of us have made it to all sorts of levels in our lives, and we still feel like we're faking it. We still feel like a fraud. And so I'm actually here with someone who specializes in working with high achieving women who struggle with imposter syndrome. Her name is Charmaine Walker. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So this has been all over social media. People have all sorts of memes about imposter syndrome. We were talking a little bit, and it's obviously not like a diagnosis. Nobody's going to diagnose anybody with imposter syndrome. So how would you define it? How would you explain what it is?
So imposter syndrome is when no matter what you've accomplished, that is usually well documented in terms of certification degrees or just praise that you're getting, promotions that you're getting, you still feel like you're a fraud and you're afraid that you're going to get found out, that you are undeserving of the accolades that you're getting. And also it is, you usually attribute those accolades or those accomplishments to someone, to luck, right? They just, I just happen to have been the last person they interviewed, so that's why they hired me, or something like that. But if you fail at something, then that's all you. That's all internal. I failed. I am the failure. I did something wrong. So when you're accomplishing things, when you're getting recognized for those, it's all luck. It's not you. And and actually the more you accomplish, the more you fear that you're going to get found out, right? Which is crazy.
So what kind of story, what kind of history does a person come from that would make them believe so strongly that they don't deserve, or they're kind of a fraud?
So all of us kind of suffer from imposter syndrome at one point or the other. I think it's some of the research has come out as like 70% of the population has suffered from imposter syndrome, male and female. Right? Wow. It does seem to affect women more, and it does seem to affect BIPOC women even more. Right? So this comes from a deep-rooted sense of not being enough, right? Of the things that we've been taught throughout our lives, that we need to work twice as hard to just get, the same thing that someone else has gotten, or, something that happened while you were a youth that made you think that, oh, I should not speak up. Little girls are meant to be seen and not heard. So now you get to the boardroom, and you might have said something, maybe it wasn't received the way that you thought it should have been received. So now you no longer raise your hand in the boardroom. And then what happens? You're no longer invited to the meetings anymore, right? Because you're not contributing like you can, right? Like all your accomplishments say that you can contribute. So, for each person is a little bit different, because, there's usually something that happened at some point in your childhood that made you basically think you were not enough, right? But it all really boils down to the sense that I'm not enough.
I mean, so if we go to like the other types of therapies that talk about cognitive behavioral stuff, and so the thought that would come up would be, I'm not good enough, or I'm not enough, right?
And that is the deep rooted thought. The thought that is really up there. Okay, so yes, the deep root thought is that I'm not enough, right? Something happened, made me believe I'm not enough. So now you do carry this out throughout your life, saying that I'm not enough, even though you've accomplished stuff, even though you're even thriving to accomplish stuff to prove that you're enough, that you're worthy of this. But yes, the deep rooted thought is that I am not enough.
And I mean, I guess the rough part is that makes me think people who have imposter syndrome would probably be struggling with confidence in other areas sometimes, that they might be anxious about friendships or their parents or their romantic relationships and dating. Does that happen a lot?
Yes, it does. infiltrate the rest of your life, right? Because granted, a lot of it does show up in work situation, or that's when it was work and schools and education situation. That's when it was first discovered. But really, back in I believe the late 70s, 78, is when the phrase came about. It was imposter phenomenon. Then it turned into imposter syndrome by two psychologists, really, right? And but yes, it does. What imposter syndrome can do is lead to anxiety and depression. So although it's not a diagnosis, right, it can lead to anxiety because now you're always worried about them finding out that you're a fraud, that you're a failure, and this now can lead to depression. So you can imagine now, if where you're spending the most of your time, your work day, right, is in a situation where you're always on guard, you're always feeling like you're a failure. When you go home, that of course is going to affect your relationships with either your spouse or your partner or your children or other family members, right? And it's also not going to make you, because it does affect your confidence. It's going to make you not jump out there when you need to, not speak up, not only in the boardroom, but you're not going to speak up in the bedroom as well.
So you're basically creating a life where you're not really getting as much as you probably deserve, even.
Yes, definitely. You're not getting what you deserve, and you're not getting what you're capable of, right? And it's very hard for some people to understand, or for those people on the outside to understand. Like, what are you talking about? You got like 10 degrees. What are you talking about? You got a promotion the other day. Or what are you talking about? You've created this business that, people love. So people from the outside cannot understand that really what ends up driving that person is being afraid of being found out. So they're working either extra hard, right? So they're overworking, so they burn out. And now this, of course, affects your family and your relationships, right? Or it actually can go on the other side where you get paralyzed. Like you're not doing anything, or you're not doing anything that's going to, that's substantive, that's going to be productive, right? You're doing all that little stuff that's really not going to produce you any income if you have a business, or get you that raise, or get you to finish that paper that you need to do for grad school or undergrad. So it actually, it's one of those things that it could go both ways. So it's hard to determine what it is for some people, because it can be looked at as either, being overproductive, ending up workaholic, burning out, right? Or being paralyzed, procrastinating, not doing anything that's worthwhile or that's going to be as productive to do.
I mean, most of the people I work with, their thought process when they're little is, if I just do this, achieve that, become this, then I'll feel it. Why doesn't it work?
Because deep down inside, we don't believe that, right? Because deep down inside, in our subconscious, we have been taught that even if you do all of that stuff, you're not going to, even if you achieve all those things, you're still not going to feel it. Because what was probably happening was like, oh, you get an A. Oh, great. Oh, but why didn't you but you got a B in this class. So it's like, it's almost never enough. Or you got all A's this time, but next time something happened and you didn't get all the A's. So now that's viewed as a failure, right? So it's like you're always striving, but never really accomplishing it, because we weren't taught, or we weren't made to believe that we were enough the way we are. Right? And remember, we were brought up by people who also didn't have that kind of thought process as well. At least my generation, my parents, they come from you work, and then you do well. They didn't have time to be thinking about how you feel, right? They just needed to work to get the food on the table. And that was it. Now I think we're becoming more aware that we can work, put food on the table, and still feel good about ourselves. Right. And now this is the point that we're at, that we need to feel good about ourselves. It's okay to feel good about yourself. I also come from a culture where you never told a girl that she was pretty because you don't want it to go to her head, or that she was smart because you don't want it to go to her head, kind of thing. Now we're starting to see that wasn't may not have been the most beneficial for the child or even for society, really. And now we're more open to say, yes, what a pretty girl. Well, how beautiful, how smart, instead of, having her just be quiet because, let it go to her head. It's okay. It's not going to create, some kind of beast or anything like that.
When you say from your culture, what do you mean? Where are you from?
Jamaica. My parents are Jamaican. So
Okay.
Caribbean culture.
Now, I'm going to get to the subconscious part of this in a second. But you mentioned something about women and particularly BIPOC women struggling with imposter syndrome more.
Yes.
Now, obviously, I have my theories as to what it is that makes that happen in terms of systemic messages and family messages. But when you're working with women who are high achieving, they've done all this stuff, what do you think it is that makes women, particularly BIPOC women, more vulnerable to feeling imposter syndrome?
Well, I think it is that systemic situation, systemic racism. It is even as simple as saying you have to work twice as hard in order to get half as much. Now, imagine your entire life you're growing up like that, right? Because my generation was told, or we were told that from we were little. You're in school, so even if you get them in the best schools, you get them in private schools, you get them at so usually they're with majority. You have to work harder. So you have this child working harder from they're like in elementary school or middle school or high school, whenever they kind of more mingle with the majority population. But just that thought that basically I'll never be good enough in this society that's around me, no matter what I do, I'm always going to be a step behind, and that also causes frustration, right? It also causes paralysis. Like, I'm not going to do anything. What's the point of doing anything? And people end up, or some people can end up just giving up. Like, what's the point? Like, I'm tired of proving myself. But another good thing that comes out of it, and these are the women that I really try to work with, is that, okay, I'm tired of working in that kind of environment. Now I'm going to create my own environment. Right?
Yes.
But yet you still have this thought that you're not good enough. What if this doesn't work? Now everybody's dependent on you. The family's dependent on you. And maybe not even financially that the family is dependent on you. But, the same thing, you are there to help the entire community. For the most part, the women I work with, their intention is to help the entire BIPOC community, right? By being an example of someone who can achieve financial success and business success, so that the others can also do that, and then the community as a whole ends up having some economic success. So, but there's still that, what if this doesn't work? What if it doesn't work is okay, because we wonder about that, and so then we figure out how to make it work. But when you think that, oh my God, they're going to find out that I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and then this is all going to fall apart, and it's all going to be apart, that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking, you mentioned the subconscious for a second, and I want to get into that a little bit because I work doing EMDR, and EMDR uses a lot, and somatic work. So both of those things use experiences in your body, past memories, even past life regression stuff can come up there, which is all very like woo-woo magic, like, is this okay kind of territory. So I thought, because you're trained as a hypnotherapist.
Yes.
I thought we should maybe get into this a little bit in terms of what is going on with hypnotherapy. Is it okay? Is it okay for people who are Christian? Is it okay for people, who have other, belief systems about how things work? Because I know most of us have seen like a stage show of hypnotherapy, of hypnosis.
Yeah.
But let's start there. How much does that stage show version of hypnosis have to do with what you're doing in hypnotherapy?
All right. So so the stage show, if you watch it, usually they call a bunch of people up, right? And they start weeding them out, right? Because what they want is the person who's going to be more receptive to the suggestions that they're making, Right. So so they'll ask, do different things, they'll weed people out, and then they got that one person now who they're going to make do whatever craziness that they want them to do. But that person has in their head subconsciously, or maybe even consciously, that they wanted to bark like a dog in front of a group of people. You know, so you're not able to make, as a hypnotist, right, you're not able to make anybody do anything that they do not want to do, or they do not already have in their mind that it's okay to do. Right.
Okay.
So that's, and what they do, they get them in a trance, and then they make a suggestion, like bark like a dog. All right. So as a hypnotherapist, I too get people in a trance. That's the hypnosis part. And the trance is the deep relaxation. Right. But once there, then working with the client, we now tap into the subconscious to figure out what was the issue. When did it first occur? How to confront it if we need to confront it, how to weed it out if we need to weed it out, and then how to implant or reprogram our subconscious to believe something that is more beneficial to us now. Right? Because as you know, the subconscious is really trying to protect us. Right? So, and everything, a lot of things got implanted into our subconscious, you know, up until about the age of 7, or right. And then, you know, there's some other things afterwards, but most of it, you know, we're basically in a trance state as a child. They're just absorbing. But as you know, as a child, you don't have those coping mechanisms to understand, oh, mommy said this, but she was angry, not at me, but at the job. So I'm not going to internalize that. We don't have that as a child. But the child is like, oh, mommy's angry at me because I didn't get an A, you know, in this particular situation, or whatever else it was. But mommy's angry at me, right? Not realizing mommy came home from work. She was tired. She saw, you know, 3 Bs. Any other day should have been okay. But this particular day, the boss said something to her and she reacted to you.
Right.
You know?
Right. And they say that kids have that me-centered version of things. Yes, so no matter what it is, they're thinking it's because me. Yes, like I did something.
I did something wrong, right?
Yeah.
So so your subconscious is now going to try to prevent that from ever happening again, right? So either you're never going to get a B again, or whatever it is, or all you're going to do is just get B's, you know, the 2 extremes, because, hey,
you may as well just... Right. Predictable.
Exactly. Because we like predictability, right? We like routine in our lives, you know. So, but as a hypnotherapist now, I work with the clients to go and confront all of that, address all of those issues, figure out what it is, right, and then replant something that now benefits us. Getting a B is okay. Failure is okay. I just learned from my failures. Whatever new thing you're going to put in there that works for that particular client. And and it's really a personal kind of thing. If you really want to get to the root, because everybody has their own issue, you know, or their own trigger for that issue. You know, so when you're working with a hypnotherapist, you really get to your particular root. You can listen to tapes online on YouTube. You know, they'll have to, but it might be, you know, something about procrastination or guilt or whatever it is. But it's kind of general, and they do help. So I don't want to say they don't help. They do help. It just takes longer because it's not using your language. So I use the client's language, right? You know, and reprogram with the language that they determine, not what I might say, you know, or how I might think, but how they interpret things, how they communicate. So I use their language to communicate back to their subconscious that, hey, basically you are enough, you know.
Interesting. So in your one-on-ones, what's happening is that people are coming to you with imposter syndrome and digging out kind of the unconscious basis for what it is that makes them feel like they aren't good enough, and then changing that thought around to something more productive, healthy, self-esteem based. Dope.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get into so let's get into a hypnotherapy true or false real quick. We're going to do a little lightning round for folks so
Okay.
that we can get through some of the questions that come up pretty often actually about hypnotherapy. So in case folks don't know, hypnotherapy is actually something that is thousands and thousands of years old in
Hmm.
roots, right? And then in the 1700s, actually comes over to Europe. And then in more modern Freudian kind of work, when we're talking about the unconscious and all these other things, what they say is that our thinking brain is like 10%. It's like the part of the iceberg that you see. And then the
Yep.
unconscious is actually like 80 to 90% of what it is that we do, think, feel, move
Hmm.
towards, value, care about. And so
Hmm.
this kind of work is supposed to be getting at the roots of the iceberg instead of getting at
Yes.
the tip of the
Yes.
iceberg.
Yes.
And
Below the
so
water. Getting below the water.
all the way into sticky early childhood trauma.
Yes.
And so it's actually really good work, and it isn't as effortful in some ways as talk therapy, which is interesting because people
Yeah.
think, I think sometimes people are very scared of this, but they will go to talk therapy and they don't really
Hmm.
want to talk about it, but this is what they think is safer.
Yeah.
So let's get into the first true or false, which is, can you get stuck in a hypnotic trance?
No. You cannot get stuck in a hypnotic trance. You are always it's hypnotic trance is like a heightened awareness, a heightened focus. So you're aware of what's going on around you. Your eyes may be closed, but you can still hear everything that's going on around you. So if the at any point, if you're like, hey, this is not working for me, you can get out. You don't even have to need permission, anything. You're like, it's not working. I'm not doing this anymore. Right. So that means that a therapist cannot leave you in trance. They can't leave you in the room and leave you in trance, so to speak. So you're just walking around in a daze like a zombie. That does not happen because you are in
Okay.
control. Believe it or not, I know you think you're not, but you are in control of the entire process that's going on.
Okay. So true or false, and this might be an opinion, but is hypnotherapy okay for Christians?
Yes, I would say so, right? And for any religion, because it's not a religious therapy. It's just really going into your subconscious mind and determining what you want to be there and rooting out what you no longer want to be there. So everybody has a subconscious, right? Everybody has a mind. There's no religion going into it. There's a form of deep relaxation, just like
Mm,
most religions have anyway. This is just like a layer or two below the deep relaxation, or a layer or two below what meditation would be or prayer would be, right? That now you're
mm.
going even deeper into your subconscious. So it's not religious at all. I've never even had that really come up.
So true or false, hypnotherapy can make you do stuff that you wouldn't normally want to do. Could it implant an idea that wasn't something that you actually wanted or really believed?
It cannot implant, a hypnotist cannot implant an idea that you do not believe in,
Mm,
right? So, and when you're working with a hypnotherapist, the ideas that are implanted or reprogrammed are ideas that you and the client, the hypnotherapist and the client comes up with even before the trance is induced. And during trance, also, once you're connected with the subconscious, you might come up with other reprogramming suggestions from your subconscious that might happen, but nothing is going to can be implanted if you do not believe that. Just like you cannot bark like a dog if you did one day really think, oh my god, I want to bark like a dog.
mhm.
It's not going to happen that way.
Okay. And
that's
so
that's all the movie stuff.
right, because this is why I'm asking, because there's some stuff where I think it's
Yeah.
generally the way that I see hypnosis portrayed and stuff. And then
Yeah.
the last thing that's actually a concern that comes up in some other therapy circles is that hypnotherapy can implant false memories. Now, that's just as right, like people make up that they've been molested or they have a trauma story that now they believe is real that isn't. Does that
Mhm.
happen? Is that true?
But I know there was a case. I think that case years ago with that whole Sybil story. And that's what came out later on, that the ideas were implanted. So as a hypnotherapist, as I said, I am trained to only use your ideas. I'm not implanting, I'm not suggesting, I'm not even suggesting anything while we're in therapy, right? While you're in trance. I'm asking you to ask questions of your subconscious, and you'll tell me what the reply is. I'll note that and be able to maybe reframe that in a way so that now that we can implant that in a good way, or know that there's something even more that we need to go into. But no, I cannot implant, or I do not implant any false memories. That'd be unethical one, right?
Yeah.
And it won't serve the purpose that I'm here to serve. So no.
And then the last thing is it true that there's some people hypnotherapy will not work for?
Well, you have to be willing, right, to go into trance, right? But we all get hypnotized all day, every day. You're driving your car, all of a sudden you're home, you can't remember the 10 streets that you passed. That's you being in trance. You're watching a movie and you're so engrossed you didn't hear the phone ring. That's, or someone calling you. That's being in a trance. We're all in a trance right before we go to bed and right before we wake up. We're in a trance state at that point, and that's when our subconscious is more receptive to any suggestions that it have. So we're always going in and out of trance. We just not as aware of it, because you're not maybe sitting down in a quiet place, with someone talking to you about it. But we're going in and out of trance all the time. But yes, you have to be willing. Like everything, nothing's going to work if you're going to sit down there and say, no, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. Because what you're doing is your subconscious is just trying to get you all the stuff that's not going to work about this. Right? Just like your life does. If you say that my life is bad, my life is bad, all your subconscious is going to do is show you how bad your life is.
You're right. It's like
yeah, it's giving you what you say you want, right? It's not determined. Your subconscious doesn't determine if something is good or bad. Charmaine says life is bad. All right, let me show Charmaine how bad life is. So I'm going every situation. I'm going to show her how life is bad. Right?
Wow.
Oh, Charmaine says life is good. I'm going to show her every situation life is good. Now that doesn't mean that it's just roses all the time. But when something bad or quote unquote bad, negative happens, the way I process it will start to be different. It'll be like, okay, so what can I learn from this lesson? Okay, that really hurt. I don't want that to happen again. What can I learn from this lesson? Or, how can I improve from this situation versus like, yeah, they always trying to get me. I can't stand that. Blah, blah, blah. All of that kind of stuff that, if I'm just thinking life is bad, life is bad. So your subconscious is going to give you what you want. So if you want some help, if you want to discover what's going on in your subconscious, if you want to be healed, it will happen. If you do not, or if you doubt it that much, then it won't. And just like with imposter syndrome, right? You're doubting yourself all the time. And what happens? More and more stuff comes up to make you doubt yourself.
And I mean, it's interesting. Thank you. So let's get that down. It's interesting because I think the mind always kind of moves towards healing if you let it. But there's definitely beliefs that come up that block people from moving towards healing because they don't think it's safe, because they don't want to feel the feelings, because they don't want to go back to that place again. And so I think you reinforcing how safe going there and kind of thinking about this stuff and unearthing this stuff actually is, not only how safe, but how healing, how corrective that can be. Hopefully will open some doors for people to explore more emotions from the body up, and more emotions from the subconscious up, instead of from this really overthinking place. Because I think you're right. And I say this about journaling all the time. I'll be like, well, you can journal, but if you just go and keep looking at the evidence of how horrible things are and write a journal entry on exactly why it is you should believe exactly what you believe, that's actually not healing at all.
Exactly.
So outside of hypnotherapy, how do you think people can start to reprogram some of the unconscious sort of beliefs and experiences that we've got?
There are a lot of methods out there. The ones that I have used, and I use it in conjunction with hypnotherapy now too, is meditation,
Mm,
mindfulness, and yoga. And why these things get you into a present state, right? So that you're no longer worrying about the future or thinking about the past. So you're in the present moment, that you can now make decisions that affect you here and now. Right? Your clearer decisions that are affecting you here and now.
mm.
Plus, those practices also help to reduce stress a lot. Right? Keeps you relaxed. Right? And when you're in a relaxed state, right, you're able to make better decisions.
Yes.
Right? You almost have better thoughts. And of course, when you're in a super relaxed state, then you can access your subconscious and make the changes on that level that you need to make. Mindfulness, meditation, and yoga, it helps you recognize what is going on in your conscious mind and make a decision. Do I want to go ahead with this thought? Is this thought going to serve me in the purpose that I have? Or do I need to change it? And if so, what now can I change it to? So it
So
gives
it's
you
more
a lot more
thoughtfulness.
control. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, listen, if we had more time, we could go on. We could talk about a lot of different things in this conversation.
Yeah.
But I think it's been amazing to think that, one, the recorded hypnotherapies actually can be helpful,
Mhm.
which I was doubtful of. I wasn't too sure how, if people were just taking my money. I wasn't sure what was happening
Yeah.
on live recording. So they can be helpful, but
Mhm.
also that there's basic sort of mindfulness and presence, including prayer, I know sometimes can
Mhm.
really be a mindful, grounded practice for a lot of folks
Yep.
that can help you slow down, be more thoughtful, kind of step away from some of those conscious thoughts that might be coming from
Yep.
old stuff. There's hope, guys. We don't have to feel
There,
like imposters.
Yes, and that's exactly why I'm doing the work. So I did a lot of work with meditation, mindfulness, and yoga earlier on in my career, and
Mm,
added hypnotherapy. And the yoga, meditation, mindfulness helped me so much in my personal life, and has helped so many other people that I've been able to help. But the hypnotherapy can get you right there.
I always
It's like,
love something like that.
yeah, like we don't have no more time to waste. I'm getting older. I want to see a different kind of world for my kids, right? And I'm like, okay, we need to get there. And then we can do all the mindfulness and meditation because that will keep you on the
In a
right
good.
track. The mindfulness, meditation, yoga, affirmations, journaling, all of those things are helpful. It takes longer.
Yes,
It might take years, whereas
absolutely.
in 3 to 4 sessions we got that out. Yeah, now you're there like, yeah, I am enough. Yeah, I'm about to do this and this. Yep. My marriage is going to be great. I'm going to do this, because that's the thing. You think you're not enough, so you're not enough to be married, right? You're not enough, so you're not enough to be a mother.
It
you know
organizes every single thing in your thoughts, every single thing in your life.
exactly.
Well, to take note, if you're not feeling good enough, how many places you might be telling yourself that it's not 100%.
Exactly. And it's hard for high achieving women to even to admit that. What do you mean? There's a lot of posturing. But when you're ready to do the work and to really get honest with yourself, what you'll be able to achieve will be so much more than what you've already achieved with this burden of imposter syndrome on there. Get rid of it. Why not? You know?
Well, on that note, I'm always like, I never know how to end a thing. So we got to do our tarot pick of the day so that,
Yeah.
we could get some kind of message from the ancestors to wrap us up on imposter syndrome. And I think it's so important to really sit with the fact that there's systemic things that if you don't practice mindfulness, if you're not kind of grounded, they will resend the message to you that something is wrong with you, that
Yes.
you are not good enough. So we have to be very thoughtful about
Yes.
really centering back to ourself and our center. And so
Yes.
I use my cards for that. I do a daily pick for myself to center something, right? And so this is my deck. This is the Afro Goddess Tarot deck. It's by
Okay.
a Black artist named Andrea Furtick. And so I like to use this deck because everybody's melanated, and so they look like me. And they look like a lot of the people I work with. So that's
Oh,
awesome.
great. I'm going to have to remember that deck and get it for my daughter.
So
Whenever she's into it.
this is the
Ooh,
card that we've got, which is it looks like the Nine of
Lord.
Swords, but I'm
Uh-huh.
holding it in
Was
reverse.
upside down, right?
Okay, yeah, but it's reversed, which is important because when a card is reversed, it has a
Ah.
whole nother meaning. And so you can see the Nine of Swords is a card of suffering, right? Private
Mhm,
suffering. And
mhm.
so let's go ahead to this description right here because I don't want to mess it up. And so the Nine of Swords. Woo, 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 woo.
Swords.
So the Nine of Swords reverse, it just means that we have intensified worry and fear,
Mhm,
right? We've got worry in the day, nightmares at night. And
mhm,
so you feel alone, you feel unable to hide. So the shadows of
mhm,
the moonlight in combination with fear and anxiety cause self-fulfilling prophecies. And so this is what we were just talking about, right?
mhm.
So the anxiety actually creates self-fulfilling prophecies of terror. But
Yes.
just like with any swords card, it's about self-inflicted mental blocks. And so the subconscious and conscious worlds are very much connected. This
Mhm.
is good, exactly what we've been talking about.
Yep.
And so this goddess has made the situation worse than it actually is by excessive worrying. As the
Mhm,
Nine of Swords that are surround her. So this can often indicate depression, nightmares, intense anxiety, and despair. You may feel
mhm.
mobilized by fear and worry. However, if you lift your head up and look at the situation more objectively, you will come to realize that it's not as bad as you might have made it out to be in the
Yes.
shadows of your mind. The worry you feel is clearly making it worse.
Yes.
So release those debilitations and find the courage to actually do something about it.
Yeah.
And so this card reminds us that the universe is on your side. So it will
Mhm.
be okay regardless. You
Yes.
don't need to worry. You don't need to impose those blocks on yourself.
No.
So appropriate.
Wow.
Appropriate.
Yes.
Them cards never lie, man. So
I know. I'm a little like, ooh, that
I
was like
know.
so accurate about what we were talking about.
That's why I pull up every day, girl. I'll be like, why are they so accurate? What is this? And I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's the cards, but either way, I give it to the ancestors for the messages. And
I
so
appreciate it.
take that with you guys. Do not get in your own way. Try to really do something if you're feeling like an imposter. You can do it. It is an
Mhm.
illusion, but you cannot do the things that you really want to do in this life. And so if you want some more info on imposter syndrome, if you want to just learn some nice reaffirming things, just get a reminder now and then, go ahead and follow Charmaine on IG. You will find her on Facebook. She's doing a lot of great things to help people, not just women specifically, who are struggling
Yeah.
with imposter syndrome, get some insight and some affirmation so they don't have to struggle so much. Thank you so much, Charmaine. Do you
Thank
have
you for
anything?
having me.
Do you have anything coming up? Anything exciting going on?
Um, I do have a new program that I am working with high achieving women to help them get rid of the imposter syndrome. It's
Mm,
about a 4 week. It's a 2 month program, but really about 4 weeks of personal one to one, and then some mindfulness training after that to help it
mm,
reinforce everything that we've learned. I've had some phenomenal results with clients, so very excited about helping other women. And as I said, my end goal or my big why is to economically empower women and BIPOC women in particular, right? So that they can empower their families and empower their
mm.
communities, right? So we no longer have to feel like we're not enough. We can create, our own, so to speak. Um, so the more I'm able to work with women, the more they're able to feel more confident going out there, the more money they're able to make, the more they're able to become an example for their children and their families, and the more they're able to employ people from the community. And that is my ultimate goal, to get women out of their own way, BIPOC women in particular, out of your own way, because you can do it. There's no need to suffer. No need to
Mm-mm.
suffer anymore, and no need for any long suffering. All them days are gone. We don't need to do that anymore. Nope.
Well, I am in full support of the mission. So if you need anything, let me know, and I support everything that you're doing. Please follow
Thank you.
Charmaine if you need any sort of support with your imposter syndrome, women out there. And we will hopefully see each other at some point in the future.
Yes,
And thank you
definitely.
guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of People Always Ask. I hope if you were feeling like a fraud, you feel a little bit better now. And if
Hmm.
not, you might be able to go grab a couple resources and figure something out. Have
Yeah,
a
or reach
great,
out to me. So,
you heard it here, or reach out to her. All right, I will see you guys next week. And thank you
thank
so
you.
much, Charmaine. Thank you guys for
Thank you.
watching People Always Ask. Same place next week.